Hey, welcome back to a new video. Ever heard of bush vipers? They're a type of venomous viper known as Atheris, and they're only found in the tropical parts of sub-Saharan Africa, except the southern regions. These snakes live in rainforests, which makes their populations spread out and a bit isolated. Now, what makes them really cool is their keeled scales that resemble leaves. People often say they look like dragons or magical creatures because of these scales. Plus, those scales aren't just for show, they help the snake blend into its surroundings, which is pretty awesome. So, get ready to embark on an exciting journey as we explore the intriguing species within the Atheris genus, commonly known as bush vipers. Are you new to this channel? I really appreciate you subscribing and hitting the notification bell. Number 1. Variable bush viper. Variable bush viper, also known by cool names like African bush viper, leaf viper, green bush viper, and common bush viper. Its scientific name is Atheris squamigera. These vipers are pretty special because they're found exclusively in West and Central Africa. Now, a lot of these vipers sport a striking green or olive color, which is why they often get the nickname green bush viper. But here's the really fascinating part. Some of these vipers come in incredibly vibrant shades like blue, yellow, orange, red, slate gray, and even black. In terms of size, they usually measure around 46 to 60 centimeters, approximately 18 to 24 inches, from head to tail, but some individuals can grow even longer, reaching over 78 centimeters, about 31 inches. And here's an interesting tidbit. The females are generally larger than the males. These vipers are stealthy nighttime predators, and they like to ambush their prey. Their favorite meals are small, nocturnal mammals such as shrews and rodents. Plus, they pack a punch with their venom, which can be potentially deadly if they bite you. The venom can lead to effects like localized pain, swelling, fevers, bruising, and blistering. Number 2. African hairy bush viper. African hairy bush viper, also known as the rough-scaled bush viper, spiny bush viper, and hairy bush viper. Its scientific name is Atheris hispida, and you'll find these cool snakes hanging out exclusively in Central Africa. What makes them stand out are those rough, keeled scales covering their bodies, which are so bumpy that they look like the bushes and trees they love to hide in. These vipers come in various colors, like green, olive green, bluish, or brownish, often with a yellow or pale olive belly and some darker scale tips. They're small and have a shaggy appearance, with males reaching about 29 inches in length and females even smaller at 23 inches. These slender snakes have pretty large eyes with vertical pupils, which adds to their unique look. One of their cool features is their prehensile tails. They can use them to hang from tree branches, almost like they're showing off their acrobatic skills. When it comes to their venom, it's mainly neurotoxic, meaning it affects the nervous system. But that's not all. They also carry cytotoxins and fasciculins, which can cause some serious trouble. A bite from one of these vipers can be fatal to humans if proper first aid and antivenom treatment aren't available. There have even been reports of bites causing severe internal bleeding. Number 3. Great Lakes bush viper. Great Lakes bush viper, which also goes by the names Nitsch's bush viper, black and green bush viper, and Nitsch's tree viper. Its scientific name is Atheris nitschii, and it's named after the German zoologist Heinrich Nietzsche. This snake is relatively big and stocky compared to other bush vipers, reaching an average total length of about 60 centimeters, that's around 24 inches, and sometimes stretching up to a maximum of at least 80 centimeters, about 31 inches. Interestingly, the females tend to be larger than the males. You'll find these vipers hanging out in various spots, like wetlands, meadows, elephant grass marshes, near small streams, and sometimes in scrubby areas and valleys at higher elevations. They're also quite at home in mountain forests, even up to the bamboo zone at elevations ranging from 1,600 to 2,800 meters. One of their favorite spots is papyrus reed around small lakes, where they often chill. Now, these vipers, like others in the Atheris genus, pack some highly toxic venom. We don't know a whole lot about their venom, but it's known to cause serious problems like severe bleeding and hemorrhaging if they bite you. Number 4. Hetfields bush viper. Hetfields bush viper, scientifically known as Atheris hetfieldi. This venomous snake species got its name as a nod to James Hetfield, the frontman of the rock band Metallica. Now, these reptiles can grow up to around 52 centimeters, which is just a bit over 20 inches. They've carved out their home at the base of a volcano on Bioko Island in Equatorial Guinea. What's really cool about them is their head, which has a triangular shape, and their scales, which are super bumpy and strongly keeled, giving them a dragon-like appearance. Here's something pretty amazing. These researchers found that the Hetfields bush viper is the first new snake species discovered on Bioko Island in over a century. Not only that, but it's also the only snake known to live exclusively on the island. Number 5. Katanka mountain bush viper. Katanka mountain bush viper, also known as the Shaba bush viper, Apemba bush viper, Katanka bush viper, and Katanka tree viper. Its scientific name is Atheris katangensis, and you can find these venomous vipers in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo and Zambia. What sets them apart is their size. They're the smallest members of the Atheris genus, reaching a maximum length of only about 40 centimeters, that's just 16 inches. These vipers have a unique look with a flat, triangular head that stands out from their neck and is covered in small, bumpy scales. Their snout is rounded, and they've got about 24 to 31 rows of dorsal scales in the middle of their body. Their tail is on the shorter side. When it comes to colors, they sport a purple-brown or yellow-brown base, and there are paired lines running along their sides in different shades. Sometimes these lines even break into a zigzag pattern, going from their head all the way to their tail. The belly and the tip of their tail are yellowish, adding a touch of brightness. You'll find these vipers hanging out in gallery forests along rivers at altitudes ranging from 1,200 to 1,500 meters. Number 6. Matildas horned viper. Matildas horned viper, also known by its scientific name Atheris matildae. This snake got its name from Matilda, the daughter of Tim Davenport, who's the director of the Wildlife Conservation Society in Tanzania. Tim, along with a small team, was the first to discover this fascinating snake. Matilda's horned viper is a unique forest-dwelling snake that you'll only find in Tanzania. It's known for its eye-catching colors, which might remind you of the Usembra bush viper, although their scales are quite different and much larger. These vipers can reach a total length of about 64.3 centimeters, which is approximately 25.3 inches. They sport a pattern of black and yellow scales, with most of their scuts being yellow. And here's what makes them stand out: above their eyes, they have scales that stick up, kinda like horns. It gives them a distinctive look. When it comes to their behavior, Matilda's horned viper is likely a nighttime ambush predator. It hangs out near streams, patiently waiting to strike at passing frogs. Number 7. Mayon bush viper. Mayon bush viper, scientifically known as Atheris anisolepis. This viper is a snake species that you'll only find in the western central part of Africa. Its home includes regions in southern Gabon, southern Congo, and western Democratic Republic of Congo. The Mayon bush viper is pretty similar to the variable bush viper, but there are a couple of things that help tell them apart. One key difference is the complete row of scales between the supralabial scales, that's the ones above its mouth, and the ocular scales, the ones around its eyes. Also, it tends to have larger, smoother scales, or scales that are only weakly keeled. However, it's important to note that these distinctions don't always apply and may not always be super accurate. This viper loves to hang out in trees, so you'll often find it in drier areas with shrubs and woodland savanna habitats. It prefers to stay at elevations below 400 meters, which is roughly 1,300 feet. Number 8. Mongo hairy bush viper. Mongo hairy bush viper, scientifically known as Atheris mongoensis. The name mongoensis is a nod to the ancient Mongo kingdom, which was located in the same region where this snake species was first discovered, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Now, what makes this viper stand out are some key characteristics that set it apart from other Atheris species. For starters, it has these elongated, lance-shaped scales on its head, especially above its eyes and in the temporal region, and they often have a small knob at the end. The scales along its tail also change in appearance, starting as complete scales and then becoming divided and eventually narrow and lance-shaped. When you look at their scales, you'll find that they have 19 to 21 rows of dorsal scales in the middle of their body, 141 to 152 ventral scales on their underside, and 43 to 55 subcaudal scales on their tail. In females, they typically have 3 suprarosтрals, 2 scales between the nasal scale and the eye, and 2 rows of scales between the eye and the supralabials. Those are the scales above their mouth. However, males don't have that second row. When you compare the Mongo hairy bush viper to other Atheris species in West and Central Africa, you'll notice differences in things like their eye size, the number of ventral scales, the count of dorsal rows at the middle of their body, and even the way their undertails are divided. Number 9. Mount Kenya bush viper. Mount Kenya bush viper, also known as Ash's bush viper and de Saix's bush viper. Its scientific name is Atheris de Saixi, and it was named after Frank de Saix, an American who was a Peace Corps volunteer in Kenya when he found the first one of these snakes. This venomous viper is unique to Kenya and is famous for its stunning black and yellow appearance. Its color pattern is pretty awesome. It's got a base color ranging from greenish-black to charcoal black, and each scale is tipped with a vibrant yellow or yellowish green. This gives the snake a speckled look that really stands out. When it comes to size, adults usually measure between 40 to 60 centimeters, which is roughly 16 to 24 inches, including their tail. Some of the bigger ones can reach up to 70 centimeters, or about 28 inches. As for its eating habits, this snake is known to be an opportunist. That means it doesn't stick to a specific diet but instead takes the chance to snack on whatever comes its way. That can include amphibians, rodents, and even small birds. Number 10. Mount Maba Forest Viper. Mount Maba Forest Viper, scientifically known as Atheris mabuensis. This snake is pretty special because it's found only in Mozambique. Now, imagine this, it's covered in those textured, keeled scales that are typical of bush vipers, and it boasts a gorgeous pattern made up of various shades of brown. To top it off, it's got striking, golden-looking eyes that really stand out. In terms of size, these vipers don't grow much longer than 35 centimeters, so they're on the smaller side. This particular species was described by two scientists, Bill Branch and Julian Bayliss, back in 2009. They're mainly found in a small forest area in northern Mozambique. What's interesting is that these little forest vipers are masters of camouflage. They blend into their surroundings really well and use this to their advantage when they're hunting. They're ambush predators, often waiting in the leaf litter or on low-hanging branches for prey to come by. Local hunters have noted that their bites can be painful, but they're generally not lethal. Still, it's essential to be cautious around them and give them their space in their natural habitat. Number 11. Mount Rungui Bush Viper. Mount Rungui Bush Viper, also known as the Rungui tree viper and Rungui leaf viper. Its scientific name is Atheris runguensis, and you can spot these venomous vipers in East Africa. Now, the name runguensis comes from the Rungui Mountains, which is where these vipers call home. They can grow up to a maximum length of about 65 centimeters, which is roughly 26 inches. What's super interesting about them is their color pattern, which can vary quite a bit. Their base color can be bright green, regular green, or even black. Most of the time, they have a pair of yellow zigzag lines running along their back. You might also see a row of yellow spots on the sides of their belly scales. Usually, these vipers like to hang out in low bushes near streams and on the edges of mountain forests, especially at altitudes ranging from 800 to 2,000 meters, or about 2,600 to 6,600 feet. But every now and then, you might come across them in moist savannas, woodlands, or hill forests. Number 12. Thai Hairy Bush Viper. Thai Hairy Bush Viper, scientifically known as Atheris hirsuta. These venomous bush vipers are pretty special because they're only found in one place, the Thai National Park in the southwestern part of the Ivory Coast. These vipers are on the smaller side, with a moderately compressed, medium-sized body and a relatively long prehensile tail. They can grow to at least 0.58 meters, but there aren't too many recorded specimens to go by. Their heads are really short and stand out from their narrow necks. The snout is short, broad, and blunt, and they have distinct canthi, those are the corners of their eyes. Speaking of eyes, theirs are quite large and have vertically elliptical pupils. When it comes to their scales, the ones on their back are strongly keeled and have little pits at the tips, with the ones along the spine being larger than the ones on the sides. Their side scales aren't serrated, and the scales on their belly are slightly keeled. If you count the scales along their back, you'll usually find 14 to 16 in one row and 14 more on the other side. As for where they like to hang out, you'll find these vipers in the equatorial lowland secondary rainforest. They're creatures of the night, meaning they come out mostly after the sun goes down, and they love to climb trees. When it comes to dinner, they most likely munch on small lizards and frogs, and sometimes they might even snack on baby birds and nests. Number 13. Usembra Eyelash Viper. Usembra Eyelash Viper, also known as the horned bush viper, eyelash bush viper, Usembra mountain bush viper, horned tree viper, and Usembra tree viper. Its scientific name is Atheris ceratophora, and you'll only find these venomous vipers in a few mountain ranges in Tanzania. These vipers don't get too big, with a maximum length of about 54 centimeters, or around 21 inches. Fun fact, the females are a bit larger than the males. When it comes to their looks, they sport a range of colors, including yellowish green, olive, gray, or black. You'll often find them chilling in the grass and low bushes, usually about 1 meter, or 3.3 feet, above the ground. They love hanging out in woodlands and forests at altitudes between 700 to 2,000 meters, which is roughly 2,300 to 6,600 feet. These vipers are probably most active at night or during the times when the sun is just coming up or going down, like at dawn or dusk. Number 14. Yuzungwi Mountain Bush Viper. Yuzungwi Mountain Bush Viper, which goes by various names like Yuzungwi viper, barber's viper, worm-eating viper, barber's short-headed viper, Udzungwa viper, and short-headed viper. Its scientific name is Atheris barburi, and these vipers are pretty unique because you'll only find them in the Yuzungwi and Ukinga Mountains Mountains in south-central Tanzania, Africa. These vipers are on the smaller side, measuring about 40 centimeters in total length, including their tail, which is roughly 16 inches. When it comes to their appearance, they rock a brown to blackish-brown color as their base, and you'll spot a pair of zigzag stripes running along their sides from the back of their head to the tip of their tail. Their favorite hangout spots are in bushes and bamboo undergrowth on the slopes of the mountains, particularly at around 1,800 meters, which is about 5,900 feet above sea level. While they seem to prefer moist forest habitats, they've also been spotted in gardens on tea farms. Here's something interesting: these vipers are believed to specialize in munching on slugs, earthworms, and other soft-bodied invertebrates, and they might even snack on frogs. What's really cool is that there's no information available about their venom, and there haven't been any recorded cases of envenomation. So, they're kind of like the mystery vipers of the Yuzungwi and Ukinga mountains. Number 15. West African bush viper. West African bush viper, also known as the Western bush viper, West African leaf viper, and West African tree viper. Its scientific name is Atheris chlorechis, and these venomous vipers are quite unique because you'll only find them in the lush forests of West Africa. When it comes to their size, these vipers are moderate, with adults averaging about 50 centimeters, which is around 20 inches in total length. That includes their body and tail. The cool thing is, they can stretch up to a maximum total length of about 70 centimeters, or roughly 28 inches. These vipers have relatively long tails. In terms of looks, adults have a consistent light green color all over their bodies. On top of that, they sport a series of faint yellow spots that run along their back, and these spots are kind of paired up and spaced about 2.5 centimeters apart, which is roughly 1 inch. Their belly rocks a pale green color. These vipers love hanging out in forests, particularly in dense foliage that's about 1 to 2 meters above the ground, which is roughly 3 to 6 feet. They're said to have a diet that includes rodents, lizards, and tree frogs. Number 16. Broadleaf's bush viper. Broadleaf's bush viper, also known as the Cameroon bush viper. Its scientific name is Atheris broadleae, and it's named after the famous African herpetologist, Donald G. Broadley. This snake is a medium-sized true viper that's got a variety of colors and patterns going on. It's kind of like a cousin to the variable bush viper, but there are some differences in the number of scales. Plus, it's got this cool pale stripe behind its eye. Unlike the variable bush viper, which can be all sorts of colors, Broadleaf's bush viper usually sticks to shades of green, green and yellow, or bronze. You'll find them hanging out mainly on the edges of forests. They're pretty much tree-dwelling, spending their time up in the branches. They're mostly active at night, but every now and then, you might catch one basking in the sun or hunting for small critters on or near the ground. When it comes to their venom, there's still a lot we don't know, but it's mainly hemotoxic, meaning it affects the blood. Number 17. Acuminate bush viper. Acuminate bush viper, scientifically known as Atheris acuminata. This snake is quite mysterious because it's only known from a single specimen, called a holotype, found in western Uganda. This particular snake measures about 440 millimeters in length. It's closely related to the bristly bush viper, and that completes the 17 species of bush vipers. Which of the species most closely resembles a dragon, or which of them is your favorite? Let me know in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.